He fought for freedom all of his life, but they laid Medgar Evers in his grave. He spoke words of truth for all men to hear, black and white alike. Then a hate-filled white man named Baron D. Beckwith laid Medgar Evers in his grave. He laid Medgar Evers in his grave, Lord. He laid Medgar Evers in his grave. Then a hate-filled white man named Baron D. Beckwith laid Medgar Evers in his grave. He taught words of love, dignity, and freedom. He'd die before he'd be a slave. Then a high-powered rifle tore out his heart and laid Medgar Evers in his grave. And
The Ballad of Medgar Evers, sung by the SNCC Freedom Singers. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Juan?
Well, we take a look now at the only time a television station had its license revoked for failing to serve the public interest. It was in the 1960s in Jackson, Mississippi. TV station WLBT had its license revoked for attempting to squelch the voices of the civil rights movement of the time. The station first came under scrutiny by the Office of Communication of the United Church of Christ. The office was founded and headed up by media activist Everett Parker. He identified WLBT as a frequent target of public complaints and FCC reprimands regarding its public service. Parker filed a petition to deny renewal with the FCC, initiating a process that eventually got the station's license revoked by a federal court and had far-reaching consequences in American broadcasting.
Dr. Everett Parker joins us now in our Firehouse studio. He has been a media activist for more than 6 decades, currently an adjunct professor of communications at Fordham University. He's 95 years old. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Thank you.
Your age is important because you bring us back to a key time. Dr. King, in his early years, came to New York, and he had a meeting with a group of people, including Andrew Young and those close to you, to talk about his concern about how the civil rights movement was being portrayed in the Southern media.
That's correct. He did. He had a luncheon with Truman Douglas, who was then the head of the Board of Home Missions of the Congregational Christian Churches. The Congregational Churches united later with the Evangelical and Reformed Church 50 years ago to form the United Church of Christ, which is what we have now. But at that time, the Congregationalists were very much interested in the civil rights movement. And Dr. King did complain to Truman Douglas about how they were treated on television, although he got a break down there when they turned the dogs loose. But that was not a planned thing. So as a consequence of his talking to Andy Young, who then was a young minister whom we had down there training people, he trained Louise Hamer,
Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yes, and I went down and I really looked at stations throughout this, from New Orleans to the East Coast, and found that it was a very bad situation. And I had earlier, teaching at Yale Divinity School, I had developed a new way of monitoring television stations. The FCC has a system of saying, send us your record for Monday of a certain date, Tuesday of a certain date, and so forth. I've developed a way of monitoring a station from the time it signed on to the time it signed off. And the FCC accepted that as co-equal with its method.
Now, Dr. Parker, one of the things in relation to the previous segment we just had on the situation with former Governor Siegelman was that this Alabama station suddenly stopped carrying a national program. You found the same situation occurring in Jackson, Mississippi, where the local NBC affiliate there, suddenly when Thurgood Marshall would get on the air or somebody from the NAACP on a network broadcast, they'd suddenly interrupt the program and not run it in their local area.
Well, when Marshall won Brown versus Board of Education and was on NBC, yes, they put up a sign, sorry, cable trouble, and blamed it on the telephone company. But anyway, I hit on WLBT simply because of the terrible things that it was doing. The mayor of Jackson at that time had a tank. He had a tank built to protect him from, he said, from the niggers, and
a tank, like
tank.
a military tank.
Well, not really a military tank, but a tank. It was a white thing that he got into, and he broadcast from that. And every day he would come on the air, and he would urge people, especially to attack our American Missionary Association college, which was just across the street from the city line of Jackson. And that was one thing that they did. There had never been a program on WLBT that had blacks, unless they were arrested. They didn't use courtesy titles with blacks.
Like Mr. or Mrs.
Mr. and Mrs. And
they also didn't employ any African Americans, although I think the listening area was about 50% African American.
It was 42%, yes. And the other thing that they did, they had only 2 churches that in town that had ever been on the station, and they were churches that Fred Beard, the manager, belonged to, and one other church. So this was a station that did everything the wrong way.
Now, Dr. Parker, you did something very interesting. You used students, only white students, is that right?
No,
who monitored the station every hour.
No.
No?
The people that did this were not students. They were citizens of the community. One family loaned its house because they had a huge porch area, a glassed-in porch. I trained the monitors, but I very carefully was not introduced to any one of them. And so when the time came that I had to testify, I said I didn't know any of them, and I didn't. So I never named one, which was very important down there, because years later, the good old boys identified the family because they remembered all the television sets that had been taken into the house, and they drove that family out of Jackson.
Of course, and these were the days of the Sovereignty Commission in Mississippi, where basically the government was surveilling and going after anybody who was involved